Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be putting together a gaming/emulation PC for under $40. Now, this is definitely some old tech that we're using here, but I wanted to keep it as cheap as possible and see if it would be worth putting something like this together in 2022. And for a lot of people, it might not be, but I was actually surprised to see the performance that this thing put out. So, like I mentioned, we're working with low-end parts here. I received this PC here for free. This is an HP 6000 Pro, and it's powered by a Core 2 Quad CPU. So yeah, we've got an old CPU here, but I do think we can make this into a little emulation/low-end gaming rig. People have been giving these away for years on my local Craigslist, so I figured I'd go ahead and pick one up. It cost me about $4 in gas to drive over there and get it, and what we've got here is 6 gigabytes of RAM, a 250 gigabyte mechanical drive. To tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure if it works, and the Core 2 Quad, which is the Q9550. So we've got 4 cores up to 2.8 gigahertz. But before we open this up and start putting it together, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by URCD Keys. I've actually been using this site for a couple years now. They do offer Steam keys, Origin, Uplay. They even offer Microsoft applications like Office, but the main reason that I use URCD Keys is for their Windows keys. Right now, their Windows 10 Pro OEM key is $19.84, but if you use code ETA at checkout, you can get 25% off. Now, there is one thing to keep in mind. When upgrading your PC using a key like this, you can change your GPU, you can change the RAM, the hard drives, the CPU. The only thing that'll stop this key from working in the future is swapping out the motherboard. But they're definitely cheap enough. And another great thing about buying from here is they do accept PayPal. I just did this build here. I need to activate Windows. I'm going to head over to my updates and security. We're going to go to activation. As you can see, I've got Windows 10 Pro, but it's not activated. So I'm going to change product key. I'm going to paste it in here. Choose next. Choose activate. And Windows is now activated. We're ready to go. My warning is totally gone, and basically that's it. They'll email your code once your payment is processed, and that's basically it. If you're interested in picking up cheap Windows 10 keys for your new PC builds, I'll leave a link in the description. Obviously, it's not the most powerful CPU on the market and hasn't been for quite some time, but I think we can still install Windows 10 on this. And one of the best things about this HP 6000 series is it supports DDR3. A lot of these Core 2 Duo and Core 2 Quad machines use DDR2, at least the ones that I see that people are kind of giving away on my local Craigslist and OfferUp. And I know it sounds odd to be excited about DDR3 in 2022, but you kind of get what you get with these older machines. Overall, it's not in bad shape. It's a little dirty. We do have 4 DIMMs here for DDR3 RAM, and 3 of them are full right now. We've got 3 2 gigabyte sticks, and unfortunately, all of the other DDR3 that I have on hand right now will not work in this machine. It only supports 1333 megahertz RAM, and all I've got is 1600 megahertz. Just will not boot up with that RAM in here. So obviously, we're not going to be able to game on it the way it is right now, and booting this up on a mechanical drive is really hard to do. I mean, it just takes forever to get into the operating system. So for this unit here, I do need to add a video card, and I'm also going to add an SSD. Went with an SSD I already had laying around. It's just a 120 gigabyte, 2.5 inch drive. I'll just boot the operating system from this, and we've got that 250 gigabyte drive in here I can install Steam games to. So now we've got storage covered, but what about the GPU or a video card for this unit? Well, about 2 months ago, I picked up a GTX 750 on eBay for $32 shipped to the door. The bracket was missing, but I just happened to have a GT 1030 low profile bracket that fit right on here. So this is only a 1 gigabyte variant, and at the time of buying this, I was going to pair it up with an Optiplex, but it wouldn't fit the Optiplex, even though this is a low profile card. It's got that larger cooler on it. But it will fit inside of this machine perfectly fine, and we don't need any extra power for it. So first things first, I'm just going to install this SSD. I'll figure out a spot to mount it. I think I can actually put it in between the hard drive and that disk drive up top, but I'll worry about this later. Now it's time to move over to the video card. And I originally picked the card up for an Optiplex, but the way it was set up, it just wouldn't fit. With this one here, we do have plenty of room. I know the GTX 750 is an older card, and we're probably going to run into some compatibility issues with newer games. I've done some research, and I know for a fact that we can't get the new PC port of God of War to work, but we'll try a couple other ones just to see what happens with it. But either way, it does support OpenGL and DirectX 11, so emulation should work out really well on this machine. So all that's left to do is install Windows 10 on this unit, and by the way, the SSD did fit in between the hard drive and the disk drive, so I just mounted it right there. And Windows 10 actually installed right away on that SSD. I knew I wasn't going to be able to run something like Windows 11 on this machine. And, oh, I actually still have it set up for USB boot. Real quick, we'll choose the hard drive. And there we have it. It's going to boot right into Windows 10. I've done a little bit of testing so far, and I gotta say, it does work much better than I ever thought it would, being such an old chip and older GPU. So we've got that Core 2 quad, it's the Q9550, only 4 cores here, no extra threads, up to 2.83 GHz. We've got 6 GB of DDR3 running at 1333 MHz, and the GTX 750 1 GB variant. So it's not a super powerful machine, but I do want to jump right into some gaming. We're going to start off light here with one of my favorite games of all time, Skyrim. So this is the original Skyrim, and we'll just go right in here, turn it to high, and start the game up. I'm using an Xbox controller connected over USB because we don't have any Bluetooth on this unit. But I'll go ahead and jump right into some gameplay. And yeah, so we're running at 60 FPS here, 1080p high settings with the original Skyrim. I'm sure with a lot of particles on screen we'll get a couple dips every once in a while, but overall it's handling this game just fine. I was expecting to have to take this down to 720p. I know it's an older game, but keep in mind we've got an old CPU and an old GPU here. So like I mentioned, I knew for a fact going into this that we couldn't run the new God of War. There's been a lot of people online trying to get this to run on the GTX 750 and it wouldn't work. I don't think we'd get great performance on that or Elden Ring, and Elden Ring goes to a white screen, crashes out on me. Same thing with Cyberpunk 2077, so they're kind of out of the question with this system. But I was able to get The Witcher 3 up and running, 720p low, and it's so close to being right there at 60. I think what's happening here is I'm just maxing out my system RAM. If you take a look at Afterburner up in the top left-hand corner, we're at 5,486 megabytes, and I've only got 6 gigs in this unit. So it's really stretching for that extra RAM, and I think it would clean up those dips if we had at least 2 more gigabytes. Just another stick in here, bringing it up to 8. Next up, we've got Street Fighter V 1080p medium settings. I get a couple dips down into the 58s, 59s, not bad at all, and something you'd probably never notice if you didn't have a frame counter on. Decent performance, and I was kind of surprised to see it run here at 1080p. Here's Dirt 3 1080p Ultra settings. We can get an average of 86 FPS out of this game, and it's actually been a while since I've played this at Ultra settings. Usually I'm testing this on really low-end Intel chips. The game does look great still in 2022. Here's another one I've been playing a lot lately, The Art of Rally. We're at 1080p high, it averaged 91 FPS. Not a super hard game to run, but it still looks great and it's a lot of fun to play. So it's definitely not a AAA gaming machine, and it really comes down to a lot of the newer AAA games not even starting up. Everything's been crashing on me, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, God of War. You want to do Minecraft on this? Does work well, we're at 18 chunks, fancy graphics on, and you can get a constant 60 out of it. So for the older stuff, with the Core 2 Quad and the GTX 750, I think it does a pretty decent job. But now I want to move over to a little bit of emulation. And the first one we're going to test here is PSP using the standalone version of PPSSPP. Chains of Olympus, 5x resolution, DirectX 11 backend, running at a constant 60. And if we can run this at 5x, then the easier to emulate stuff, you can go ahead and take up to 8x, and even some of them up to 10 if you really need to. And going into this, I had a good feeling it was going to handle PSP games quite well. I mean, when it comes to the GPU side of things, we do have plenty of power for this kind of emulation. Same goes for something like Sega Saturn. Now with this here, I'm using RetroArch and the Yobase and Shiro core. As you can see, I do have some graphical glitching going on. Not exactly sure what the deal is with this, but I also tested Fighting Vipers. That one didn't have these glitches, but this is a harder one to run, and I wanted to show you that it does run at full speed. Another one that works really well on this setup is the DOlphin emulator, be it Gamecube or a Wii. We're at 1080p here with Wii, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, DirectX 11 back in, running at full speed. Great performance for Gamecube and Wii. Now there might be a couple games you have to drop it down to 720p, but then again, there are some easier to emulate games where you can go up to 1440 with it. And the final one I wanted to test here was PS2 using PCSX2. Unfortunately, it's not great for PS2 emulation, and it really comes down to the CPU. The GPU does have more than enough power to push these games at 720p, even some of them at 1080, but this Core 2 Quad is a little too underpowered for a lot of these PS2 games. So is it worth putting something like this together in 2022? Well, I'd say, if you know exactly what you're getting into and you can get into this cheap enough, it does make a nice little emulation machine. You could run Linux on it, you could run a standalone emulation front end like Batocera, and if you want to see a video like that, let me know in the comments below. I was able to pick up the PC for free, and I already had that GPU on hand, so I figured I'd go ahead and make a video, and to tell you the truth, it does perform way better than I ever thought it would. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Really appreciate you watching. In case anybody's interested in putting something like this together, I will leave some links in the description as long as I can find cheap enough parts on eBay, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. But like always, thanks for watching.